Hello, hello. I had just done a session and it was all on test. I didn't realize at Facebook Live that it wasn't actually live. But anyway, so I am committed to my growth mindset on learning how to do Facebook Lives. This is so much fun. Thanks for being here on the journey with me. And this is day 2 of my workshop series on burnout, stress, and designing the life that we want. Okay, so yesterday I went over how to deal with stress and not just the stressor in our lives in order to prevent or reduce burnout symptoms that come with chronic stress. So today I'm going to go over how do you know when it's time to make a change, whether it's to quit or to stay. And I'm also going to go over red flags at work that might indicate it is time to make a change. All right, so how do you know when to make that change? First things first, you practice completing the stress cycle response that I discussed yesterday in my workshop. Process the stress and not just the stressor, though that means sticking to the 20 to 60 minutes a day of the activities recommended to process stress. And I talked about it. That includes affection, hugging, kissing, someone you trust, right? It also includes engaging in creative activities and physical movement. And there's a lot more too that's there. And I'd review those and do that 20 to 60 minutes a day. And so you practice doing this in your current workplace to see if that changes your experience at work. That's the first tool to use. The second is to evaluate your current situation, the job you're in a way that gives you your power back. The best way to do this is to start with the assumption that you're going to be happy and successful no matter what choice you make, whether you quit or you stay. Our happiness is not based on making a right or wrong decision, right? Our happiness depends on how we think about our decision. So we're going to have 2 assumptions with this that we're going to use that ensures we have our own power and agency, right? The first assumption is that you are in your current job by choice. Now you might say, well, I have to pay the bills, I have to support my family. That's why I'm here. But here's the thing. You don't have to do any of that, right? You really don't. Plenty of people don't pay their bills. Plenty of people choose other types of jobs. No matter how constrained your circumstance, even if you're at a job that you really hate, you are choosing to be there, right? Yes, it might be because you are choosing to support your family through this job, but you are still making that choice. So let's start with that first assumption that no one is forcing you to be there. And you've made the choice to be there at this very moment. The second assumption, that we start from is that we have to like our reasons for staying in this job, right? So what are our reasons, right? Maybe it's the commute. Maybe it's the pay so you can support your kids, right? Maybe it's the flexibility at work. Maybe it's the status of your job title. Maybe it's that you've worked so hard to attain your degree and you are now choosing to use it in this way. Whatever it is, you jot down your most powerful reasons and rate each reason on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being that you love your reason and 1 being that you don't, right? And then you just review those reasons and the ratings. And if you're finding all your reasons are below a 4 or if you're below a 3, maybe then that's an indication, right? That's a good tool to use that it's time to make a switch. Because what you want to ask yourself is, are you liking your reasons for staying there or for leaving, right? If you make a change, you want to do it from a place of desire to evolve and grow and expand rather than out of fear or pain, right? And this is where the model, the process, it's called thought work, and it's how I was trained at the life coach school, can be a powerful tool for helping you make a decision and to discern which struggles you want to keep and which struggles mean that you should go, right? Because some struggles are worth it because they help you grow and evolve. And that kind of discomfort is the currency of your dreams, right? But then other struggles, you might decide, yeah, it's really not worth it. It's leading me to exhaustion, leading me to constant burnout, right? Maybe it's time to leave that situation and make a major change. Now, thought work, this process, is a tool out of many that's used, but it's based on causal coaching. The life coaching that I do is about treating the symptoms, right, of workplace pain or shortcomings. It's not about just treating the symptoms, it's about finding the root cause of the symptoms, right? Understanding it and then making a change for the new seeds of success and fulfillment. Now, thoughts are one of the main reasons for your experience at work. And yes, there are toxic workplaces, and I'm going to get into that. But what we can control, our thoughts play a significant part in our experience. Our thoughts contribute to the experience we have at the workplace, right? And our thoughts create feelings, which are the emotions or vibrations we experience in our bodies. Anger, sadness, excitement. We might think our feelings come from something that happens external to us, but it actually comes from our thoughts. We have 40,000 thoughts a day, and we're not consciously aware of them all, but they are the reasons for the feelings we have. A prime example, say your roommate or your partner forgets to take out the trash. You might think, oh, he never does it, he totally should, or they should, they make me so mad. But it's really not your partner or roommate that's causing your feeling. It's the thoughts you have about it. You're making it mean, what you're making it mean about you and your relationship. They don't care, or they don't, care about this household. They don't care about me to take out the enough to take out the trash. All that meaning that you're adding to it and your thoughts about it is really what's creating your feeling of being mad. Now, how does this translate to the workplace? Let's start with just these questions that you can use to help you evaluate whether to leave or stay at work. What are my thoughts about my current situation at work? For example, it might be I hate my job, I don't like my boss, I'm underappreciated. Jot down the recurring thoughts that you have. Then jot down the associated feelings with each of those recurring thoughts. And really sit with yourself in stillness to figure out what it is you're feeling. You might actually feel sadness when you think I hate my job. You think, oh, I feel anger. But really when you dig deep and sit still, you're like, I'm kind of sad, And try to use only one emotion per thought, like the strongest emotion you feel that's connected to that thought. Because that's going to help you be more aware, like, where is this all coming from, right? And then you want to ask yourself, what do I want to be feeling at my job or work as a contrast? Do I want to feel fulfilled? Do I want to feel joyful? Do I want to feel full of purpose? And then ask yourself this, whatever it is I want to be feeling at work, what thought would create this feeling for me? It might be, I make a difference here, or I am learning and growing so much. Try to stick to one thought that's going to help you generate that feeling that you so desire. So if you want to feel joyful, that's the primary emotion you want to have at work, then choose that one thought that's going to help you create that feeling of joy. And then ask yourself, if I were to stay here and I had this thought, I'm making difference here, and I feel joyful, what actions would I then be taking? From this place of joy and thought that I'm making a difference, maybe I would connect to my colleagues more. Maybe I would ask my supervisor for projects that I want to be a part of to make a difference. Maybe I'm going to draw clear boundaries so that I can be fully rested when I go to work and actually feel the joy. That action, so it's the thoughts that create the feelings that then lead to actions. That action part is where you can have a bunch of things that you do that come from that feeling and thought that you have, right? And then you ask yourself, if I practice this thought and feeling and I took these actions, would that change my experience here? Would it be enough for me to stay? Now, I do want to point to, I do have a chart here that shows behind me, okay? And this really helps understand how the model can help us make decisions just by being more aware of how our thoughts operate. And so circumstance is a fact, something that can be proven in the court of law. Like you work, you work at X company with the title, whatever title that is a fact. Now, in this particular circumstance that's factual, you have thoughts, right? And you want to choose one thought to work on. Maybe it's I hate it here. This is the unintentional model. This is what you're currently operating under. I hate it here. For example, this is an example. It could be another thought. And then when you think that thought, what feeling do you have? Now, this requires that you turn inward and you sit in stillness to try to understand or figure out what feeling you have when you think this thought. And then you ask yourself this, when I have this thought and this feeling, what actions do I take, right? Maybe when I think I hate it here and the feeling I have is resentment, for instance, the actions I take when I'm feeling resentful and thinking I hate it here is that I withdraw. I withdraw, I pull away. I do my work, but with resentment. And think about the actions you take and the inactions you take. And then the last line here to help you understand it is actually the result. Again, it's all causal coaching, which says in a circumstance that's factual, you have thoughts that create feelings that lead to actions that then produce a result in your life, right? And that means that the thoughts you have at work is contributing to your experience there. You have a role to play, right? So this is just a useful tool to help you understand, like, to make a decision. Should I go? Should I stay? But first, to figure out what kind of thoughts am I having at work? What kind of feelings am I having? How are those two things driving my actions? And then creating the kind of result at work. And if I were to, clean it up and deal with my stressors, deal with the stress at work, could that change my experience? If I were to change my actions, right, would that generate the feeling that I want to have? And then be able to practice thoughts that I want to have at work to create a completely different result at work. In which case, then I might want to stay, right? I might want to stay at that job. So it's a great, useful tool. Now, the reason is I want to say, even if you decide to leave or you quit, right, you're going to take the same human brain with you. The new job or the new venture is not going to suddenly give you joy. There's no perfection in any job or career. You're going to basically trade also one dysfunction for another. So before making that decision, you want to be able to clean up your thoughts. And by that, I mean use the model, use tools, you journal, you jot down questions and answers. You want to clean that up so that you're making the decision from a place that is from the desire to grow and evolve rather than avoid pain. You want to make the decision from your prefrontal cortex, that part of your brain that's thinking and that's making strategic decisions, as opposed to the primitive part that just wants to avoid pain, or has these strong, intense feelings and wants to act on it, right? And so how do you determine what you really want? This is how to think of it. In the absence of guilt, obligations, insecurity, or shame, and towards that feeling of what you want to have about your work, right? Maybe it's a sense of purpose. Maybe it's joy. Like, what do you want to feel overall when you go to work, right? So in the absence of guilt, obligations, insecurity, and shame, and towards joy or the things I want to feel at work, then what decision would I make? Let's say that you hate your job and you suddenly quit. You have a conflict at work. Now remember, from yesterday's workshop, you're going to want to deal with the stress itself, not just the stressor, right? So just because the job is no longer there and you've quit, you're still going to feel stress because you're going to need to process all that, right? The fight you had, the conflict, the drama, the bad taste in your mouth when you left, you're going to need time to process all that stress. Now, let's say you go into a new job and it might just work out great for you. But if you don't learn the tools to process stress and to be more aware of your thoughts and feelings, it's only a matter of time before the honeymoon period wears off and you start to see your new job as flawed, right? And as the culprit of your unhappiness. And as we know, job is not what's causing your unhappiness, right? It's really giving too much power to your job, that it has that much power over you, right? That the kind of thinking gives too much power over, too much power to your job that it has over you, right? But really no job has the power to determine your sense of self-worth or emotions. So that's why we want to take that power back, right? And we want to say, it's not the job that's creating my happiness or unhappiness. It's my thoughts about it. So learning to manage my mind is going to be a powerful tool no matter what I do, no matter if I quit or stay. And yes, burnout is real. Toxic workplaces are real. But we want to operate from an empowered framework where we get to decide the experience we have at work. And that might mean making a major change, right? No matter what, we want to focus on what we can control within these constraints. So that's why using the model and being aware for thoughts and feelings is so useful to discern which struggles are worth it and which are not. The process for making a decision is always to clean up your thoughts about it first, then to make a decision based on how you feel. You want to make sure you aren't making a decision to change how you feel. You want to change how you feel and then make the decision. All right. Now, here's another thing to remember. Number 4, okay, is another tool. This decision is there's no reason to stay in limbo. You either decide to stay or you leave. So much of the mental drama my clients go through is the inability to make a decision. Should I go? Should I stay? And they're really staying even though they want to go. But really, the thoughts you have about a decision are totally optional. At some point, you're just going to have to decide, right? And you're going to have to choose to like your decision and like the reasons for that decision. You are making that choice. So if you're deciding to stay, then you want to be committed to that decision by using the tools that you have in support of that. Right? That's the thoughts and the emotions and dealing with the stress. All those tools will be in support of the decision you make. It doesn't have to be forever, the decision you make, but your decision deserves a full and fair shot, right? You commit to it for a period of time and you use your tools in support of that decision. Here are a couple of questions to ask yourself. What would your experience be like if you just made a choice? What would you need to think and feel to make a decision? Now, here are some thoughts to keep in mind, right? More important than either choice is the act of just deciding. Making a decision means making progress. Making a decision means you're actually on the journey. Notice that by staying stuck in indecision, you're neither helping people or helping yourself. You're not treating your time as valuable, right? You're just not on the journey to anywhere. You're stagnating. So I want to just review this for the tools and the questions and thoughts to practice when you're making a decision on whether to leave or to stay. So number one, practice completing the stress cycle response. Number two, evaluate your current situation in a way that gives you your power back, right? And I talked about the assumptions that you want to have, right? Which is that there's no right or wrong decision, and it's that you choose to be there. You're making a choice even now, right? Number three, using thought work, the model, to help you discern and help you make decisions, discern which struggles are worth it, which are not, and to help you make a decision. And then number four, there's no reason to stay in limbo. You either decide to stay or leave, and then you commit to that decision. All right, those are the four main tools, frameworks to use. Now, I have posted elsewhere on codependent tendencies that's reinforced the workplace from the academia and higher ed sectors, nonprofit, NGO, and the corporate industries. Now, I talk about codependent tendencies because we do have some individual agency in drawing boundaries and creating the experience we want at work to some degree, right? To a large degree. But there are also red flags that it's time to make a major change. And this happens, it can happen in entire industries, right? Where boundaries are constantly violated and there's repercussions for actually enforcing boundaries. Those are definitely some red flags to note. And I want to point some out to you. I have 7 red flags to kind of to observe or questions to ask yourself to indicate that it might be time to make a change. The first, work culture is so important. What is the culture like in your organization and in your industry? Is it collaborative? Is it cutthroat? What culture would you like to be in? If there's a mismatch, that's a red flag, right? There's a culture to Wall Street traders, for instance. If that doesn't fit your values and how you like to operate, the feeling, the desired feeling you want to have when you go to work, then maybe it's time to rethink your path. Number 2, when you ask yourself day in and day out, is this all there is? Right? When what you're envisioning in the change you want to make is so much more powerful than what you're experiencing at work, it's time to make that change, right? It's when the drive for you to try something new is so much stronger than the negative feelings you have about your job. It's time to make that switch. Number 3, when you establish boundaries, especially in your home and your work life, and it constantly gets disrespected and violated, and people all around you, it's the same way, and they're punished for drawing and communicating those boundaries. That's a red flag. Number 4, when the path to promotion and advancements aren't clear and it keeps shifting. There's no clear idea of what upward for you that looks like. And there's no transparency even after you've asked for it, right? This is after you've communicated that you want to be, you want to know more about what that path looks like, what the expectations are. And if that's not clear, even after you've asked for it, or it keeps shifting, then that's a red flag. Number 5, when you tried, but you're having a hard time finding allies and mentors. And there's just a lot of workplace drama going on. There's high employee turnover, low morale, weak leadership, lots of unhealthy behaviors going on, micromanaging, for instance. Maybe you're not in the right place, right? And you're having a hard time finding your people. That's a red flag. Number 6, when your basic needs aren't met, pay and benefits, working conditions, there's simply no excuse for accepting pay that's below your need to support yourself and your family. There's no reason to accept those conditions, right? And you might say, well, they promised me down the line, I'm going to get this position that will actually give me a living wage. Again, you want to ask yourself, why am I staying? Am I actually seeing legitimate examples of people that finally are getting the pay they deserve? But why am I asked to sacrifice decent pay for X number of years, right? That is a boundary issue. And you have to ask yourself, why am I accepting these low standards? And maybe it's a red flag that that's what you're being offered. And maybe it's time to change, right? And this goes back to the whole turning inward. Why am I staying in this? Horrible condition where I'm, I'm paid very little for what I deserve to be paid. And I can't even support my family, right? So that's when your basic needs aren't even being met. Number 7, you're not growing, expanding, being challenged and stimulated, and you feel stifled. You're even bored. Okay, so those are the 7 red flags. Number 1, a mismatch in work culture. Number 2, when you ask yourself, is there all this is? Number 3, you establish boundaries, but it's just not respected, right? Number 4, when the path to promotion advancements are not clear or they keep changing. Number 5, you have a hard time finding allies and mentors in your people, in your industry, or in your organization. Number 6, when your basic needs for pay and benefits are not being met. Number 7, you're not growing, expanding, being challenged, and you're bored. Okay, those are major red flags to indicate to you that it might be time to make a job or career change. Now, the major takeaway for today is learning to manage your mind by being aware of thoughts and emotions will always serve you no matter where you go, whether you stay or leave. You're going to have the same human brain, and that primitive part of your brain is scared of change. So even if you just decide to quit and you find something new, it's going to freak out no matter what, right? So that's why learning to manage our minds is so useful. Now remember that making a decision is better than sitting in limbo. So whatever you do, make that decision and then commit to that decision for a period of time. You commit to it with your thoughts and emotions and actions. Give it a fair shot. And recognize that no decision is right or wrong or permanent. And the more you make decisions, the better you get at being comfortable with it and trusting yourself. Finally, there are red flags to note at the workplace, indicating when it's time to make a change, right? So I've gone through the red flags with you. But even then, you're going to want to use the tools that we've talked about, which is processing the stress on a routine basis, and to learn to manage your mind, clean up your thoughts, right? Because any change you make, any decision you make, it's best when it comes from a place where the desire to grow and evolve is so much more powerful than fear or insecurity or shame or sense of obligation. All right, thank you for joining me today. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk about designing the life you want using design methods and anthropological methods. All right, my friends, see you tomorrow.